So, in Jujutsu Kaisen, Season 3 is now complete, and in the final episode, Yuta came face to face with a giant cockroach. For today's video, I'll be doing a breakdown / live reaction to the final episode, but before we get into it, I wanted to explain the full context of the situation so that we all understand why certain things are happening. To start things off, the events of this episode take place in Sendai, which is roughly 200 miles away from all of the things we've been seeing in Tokyo. The reason Yuta is this far away is that back in episode 3, it was decided that he would immediately join the Culling Game before the rest of Jujutsu High. However, the one problem with this is that phone signals don't work inside the barrier, and so once you enter the Culling Game, you lose contact with the outside world. As a result, Yuta had no idea when his comrades would join the game, and so if he had stayed in Tokyo, there is a chance that he would have killed them by accident. Traveling to Sendai solved that problem, but it just so happens that Sendai is the most dangerous colony in the entire game. Inside this barrier, you had multiple special grade threats, and before we continue, it's probably best that we explain each one. Firstly, Dhruv Lakdawala is by far the oldest player in the Culling Game, and based on what we know, he's around 2,000 years old. Around 1800 years ago, Dhruv took part in the very first civil war in Japan, and conquered Japan by himself. I actually spoke about this in more depth in my video about every era of Jujutsu Kaisen, so if you want to know the full story of the Civil War of Wa, then the link is in the description. For everyone else, you might be wondering how he conquered an entire country, and the answer is that his technique gives him an open domain. The way it works is that Dhruv has these two giant Shikigami that kind of orbit around each other, and the space in between the Shikigami, that counts as a domain. To put it another way, if you were to accidentally walk into the space in between the Shikigami, then his sure hit effect would get you. In that situation, Dhruv's technique would slash you, kind of similar to Sukuna, and yeah, these slashes can be fatal. In fact, out of all the Culling Game players in the Sendai colony, Dhruv had the most points by far with 91. After him, the next player with the highest points was Ryu Ishigori with 77. One of the interesting things about Ryu is that he's from the exact same era as Kashimo, which was around 400 years ago. The name of that era was the Edo period, and although Ryu had a good life and it sounds like he had a wife and he had lots of good fights, he felt like something was missing. He felt like there was one amazing fight that he just never got to have. And so the reason he signed up for the Culling Game was to find someone who he could just go all out with, and that fight would be his dessert. Also, something else about Ryu that I have to mention is that out of every player in the Culling Game, he has the highest curse energy output. As a quick reminder, curse energy output is the amount of curse energy that you can release in a single attack. And I guess what they're saying is that out of all the players, including Sukuna, Yuta, Kenjaku, and whoever else, Ryu is the best when it comes to this. Following Ryu, we have Takako Uro, who comes from the golden age of sorcery 1,000 years ago. Back then, the biggest political force in Japan was the Fujiwara clan, and in the world of JJK, the Fujiwara clan had an elite squad of sorcerers known as the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. In her first life, Uro was the captain of that squad, which I think says a lot about her because, the Golden Age was the strongest age of sorcerers, so to be hired by the strongest clan, and then to be given the position of captain in one of their strongest teams, it means that you are probably a special grade threat, or pretty close to it. Her curse technique allows her to use her hands to freely distort and manipulate the space around her, and generally speaking, she uses this to redirect attacks, to defend herself, and to throw people around. Lastly, the final person we need to talk about is Kuro Urushi, who is an intelligent cursed spirit made from humanity's sphere of cockroaches. As you'd expect, Kuro Urushi has multiple cockroach-based abilities, including the power to control real cockroaches, and also the ability to self-reproduce. The name of this self-reproduction is parthenogenesis, and according to Google, female cockroaches can do this to basically produce offspring without needing to mate with anyone. For Kuro Urushi, what this means is that this cursed spirit can produce a child. I would say the closest thing we've heard to this is Chozo's mother, who had a child with the cursed spirit, but besides that, cursed spirits don't usually reproduce. As a side note, Kenjaku is actually the one who had control of this curse, but when the Culling Game began, he set it free and allowed it to take part in the Culling Game. Then, after 12 days of fighting, these four were locked in a standoff since nobody here wanted to make the first move against the others. Considering that they're all incredibly powerful, it makes sense that there would be a standoff since nobody here wanted to, provoke the other one to launch an attack. During this time, Kuro Urushi went into hibernation, so she just stopped fighting completely, while Uro and Ryu were on the sidelines watching Dhruv Shikigami. Eventually though, on the 12th of November at 11:28 am, the standoff was broken by Yuta, who just interrupted and killed Druv by slicing through him. You might be wondering though, why did Yuta target him and not the others? And I would say there's two answers to this. The first is that Druv's technique targets anyone who walks into his domain, so the targets can be sorcerers and civilians. From a civilian point of view, players like Druv are the most dangerous because they don't care where they get the points from. The second reason is that Druv had been using this stadium as his base, and Yuta thought that if Druv was out the way, then the stadium could be used by these civilians. As a quick reminder, back in episode 7, we saw that everyone in Sendai was given the chance to leave, but for whatever reason, not everyone said yes. I'm guessing that some people just thought it was a dream and they didn't know what to say, and probably when it comes to the parents, I would imagine that they wouldn't want to say yes and go outside the barrier because they don't know what their kids are going to say. Imagine leaving the barrier to find out that your 5-year-old child is still in there with the cursed spirits and with the sorcerers. It wouldn't be the best outcome, so you can see why parents might stay behind. As a result, Yuta's plan is to do what's best for the people and at some point get them outside the barrier. And so with all that said, it's time to finally just watch the episode, and I'll just give you my thoughts as we go along. Okay, so it's a pretty bloody start to the episode straight from the first second, and Yuta's basically discussing the new rules they need to add because, it's important to remember, in the Culling Game right now, no one can leave. If you're in the Culling Game barrier, you can't escape. And so because of that, the supplies inside the colony are limited, as he says, which means that, within a few days maybe, the food might run out, the water might run out, because it's already been nearly 2 weeks since the game began. As a result of that, I think Yuta is looking to add a rule that will allow people to leave the barriers, but as he says, he can't do that yet, because if he was to allow people to leave, then players like Druv, players like Kuro Urushi, people who attack indiscriminately, they would also be allowed to leave the barriers, and they would just cause havoc all across Japan. On top of that, he also has to think about the other colonies as well, because, he's in Sendai, but for all he knows, every colony has players like Druv. Like I said before, adding a rule that would allow them to leave, it could cause chaos across the entire country, so he just can't do it right now. The main priority for him, I think, is to add a rule that will allow contact and communication between the different colonies. If he's allowed to communicate with the other colonies, then, he can call Yuji, he can call Hikari and just see what's going on. And if the situation allows for it, then he can add a rule allowing people to escape. He also mentions that there are 2 additional rules that he wants to add, and one of those is the transferring of points. The transferring of points is a rule that will basically save Sumiki's life because the Culling Game kills players if their score stays the same for 19 days. And so allowing the transfer of points will basically save the lives of anyone who doesn't want to kill. It sounds complicated, but in other words, transferring points will allow Sumiki and a bunch of other people to live. That's the main thing. And this episode is taking place before Yuji's fight with Higuruma. Because if you remember, at the end of that fight, Higuruma adds the rule that allows the transfer of points. And that fight actually takes place on the same day as this, but in this specific moment, it hasn't happened yet. And so for that reason, Yuta himself is thinking, he wants to add 4 new rules, 400 points that he needs, which means he's going to have to kill a lot of people following this moment. Okay, so following Druv's death, we see his Shikigami disappearing, and then we see Yuta with a group of civilians. I guess he's like Jesus to them. He must have found them one by one in the city, and he's now gradually bringing them towards the stadium. I say gradually, I mean they're now running towards the stadium because of all the cockroaches. Yuta notes that these cockroaches are real. They're not just like Shikigami or something. They are real life cockroaches, and there is an entire swarm of them just heading towards the civilians. That is impressive. Okay, so the entire swarm of cockroaches was just destroyed by Yuta's curse energy output. And, I should point out, discharging curse energy is something that any sorcerer can do, in theory. We don't see it that often. I feel like we should see it more often. But in this scene, Yuta isn't using his curse technique. He's purely just using curse energy output to just destroy all those cockroaches, which is pretty impressive. Okay, so we're about to get a showdown between Kuro Urushi and Yuta. I guess the one thing to say about Kuro Urushi, she is an intelligent curse, and so she's able to strategize, able to use weapons like the festering life sword that she's got there. This is like facing one of the disaster curses, or pretty close to that. So yeah, Kuro Urushi's goal is just to eat as many people as possible, like we saw with that guy who she just devoured. Jesus Christ, they're really going all out for this, aren't they? This is pretty nuts. Okay, that was incredible. So Yuta just destroyed 2 cursed cockroach tornadoes. I don't even know how else to describe that. To Yuta's credit, he destroys them pretty easily with the Curse Energy Discharge. That was very impressive. That was very impressive. Okay, so I feel like I need to explain what happened there. So beforehand, we were looking at real cockroaches, but after Yuta destroyed them, we see there's 2 Shikigami. And by slicing them, it kind of releases this, I don't want to call it acid because I honestly don't know what it is, but the main point is that this liquid, this green liquid, it blinds Yuta for a split second. And that's what gives Kurorushi the opening. Although this moment happens really quickly, basically what happens is the festering life sword shoots out these eggs, right? So inside the sword are a bunch of cockroach eggs, and by shooting those off into Yuta's wound, they grow really quickly and they just explode out of him. So I don't know how else to say it. They've grown inside him, and if Yuta didn't have reverse curse technique, then he might have died in this moment. Instead, he's able to kill Kurorushi by kissing her. And the reason this worked is because cursed spirits are made from negative cursed energy. Whereas with reverse curse technique, you're able to output a positive energy because, as we know, reverse curse technique is when you multiply negative energy to create positive energy. And that positive energy is poisonous to all cursed spirits. Immediately after this, Uro shows up, and as we can see, she's kind of like enlarging the space around her, I guess is the best way to describe it, kind of comparable to Limitless in a way. And by doing this, she flings Yuta back into this building and immediately follows it up by punching him. Now, for this one split second, Yuta's arm kind of looks like Luffy from One Piece, and the only reason this happened is because he tried to punch her, and she's manipulating that space so that his attack doesn't land. And by manipulating the space that his arm is in, that's what causes it to get stretched out. But Yuta doesn't actually, he won't take damage from this. It's just an interesting way for her to avoid his attack. That's pretty much it. She then punches him into a museum, it looks like. And he's just trying to basically figure out what her technique does because he's not feeling any pain at the moment. Wait, for 1 second. Let me just rewind that. So in this scene where we see Yuta, in the background, this picture of that guy, I promise you, I've seen this picture. I don't know, it might be maybe Michizane Sugawara. I'm promising you, the picture in the background there, I'm going to Google this afterwards, but that picture in the background, that is of someone who is relevant to Jujutsu Kaisen. It's either Michizane Sugawara or it's a member of the Fujiwara clan, but I have definitely seen that picture before, so I'm going to be looking that up right after this video. Anyway, we should probably discuss what they're actually talking about. So Yuta's wondering why someone like Uro would actively seek a fight and try to, fight him. Because if she wants to survive the Culling Game, she can easily kill one person every 19 days and survive. So he's basically wondering, why are you going out of your way to start a fight with me? And Uro basically replies by saying this is her chance at a second life. So to fully realize that second life and to, make the most of it, she needs to get as many points as possible so that she's prepared for whatever Kenjaku is going to do. The reason Yuta has a problem with this is that Uro has come from the past and is now killing people in the present. So he's basically saying, like, how can you be so desperate for a second chance at life that you are coming into the future and killing people who you don't know? Like, how could you be that desperate? This is why she gets triggered, because from her point of view, she was treated very unfairly in her first life, right? Very unfairly. So this is a chance at redemption. Whereas from Yuta's point of view, he's not really empathizing with her. And so, that is what sets her off. And that's why she strangles him and just, blasts him outside the museum. Anyway, as these two were flying through the sky, they get hit with just the full force of Granite Blast, which is Ryu's special move. And basically, all it is a blast of concentrated curse energy that comes directly from his hair. Yeah, as you can see, it caused a bit of damage to the street. I say quite a bit of damage. But Uro and Yuta were fine, mostly because of their curse energy reinforcement. From Yuta's perspective, though, he wasn't thinking about himself. He's thinking about the civilians who were in the stadium, because if a blast of that exact level was to hit the stadium, then definitely people would die. It might not be everyone because Rika is there protecting them, but it would be a lot of people. And so Yuta's main goal after getting hit was to just take out Ryu. This is why we see him running towards Ryu like this, and these acrobatics are insane, by the way. If I had to just eyeball it, that was like 10 different granite blasts all at once. And so I guess that shows you the difference between Ryu and other players, right? Because a normal player like Yuta, for example, they're able to output curse energy. But the thing about Ryu's technique is that he can release multiple blasts at the same time. And those blasts are kind of like heat-seeking missiles. They can change direction and kind of curve around and try and find the target. Doesn't mean they'll land necessarily, because as we can see, Yuta dodged quite a few of them, but Ryu's discharge of curse energy, it is stronger than most people. It has more blasts than most people. Most people can't do this many separate blasts at once. And it also is able to follow the target to an extent. So it has, 3 big advantages over other sorcerers. After avoiding all those blasts, Yuta basically tells him to stop destroying everything. Stop shooting your blasts everywhere, because if he's reckless, then he might hurt the civilians who were in the stadium. Even though Yuta has called himself weak, this is still pretty incredible. I know he's being reinforced by curse energy, so it's not completely his own physical strength, but I don't care. Yuta is very good at hand-to-hand combat. He's only been training for like the last year. Now he's doing this, right? All these backflips. 1 year of progress, 1 year of Jujutsu High. You know what? I bet it was Miguel. I bet Miguel taught him all this. Ooh, okay, so this is completely anime original right here. Yuta slicing through Ryu's curse energy blast with this pole. Oh, damn. I'm starting to see why they were marketing this episode like it was a movie. I saw on Twitter there were like these posters in Japan on the train station, like it was genuinely like they were promoting a movie or something. I would go to the cinema to watch this. This is pretty epic. Okay, so we are getting a scene of Yuta's hand burning up as he uses his fist to block Ryu's curse energy blast from the source. And then he gets pushed back straight into Uro. So Yuta's getting thrown around at the moment, to be honest. Oh my god, okay. So, quick explanation. So, Ryu is basically focused on Yuta. He believes that Yuta could be his dessert, as he said, but Uro's getting in the way because she attacked Yuta in this moment. So, Ryu's main priority right now is getting Uro out the way because he just wants to focus on Yuta. He wants it to be a one-on-one thing. So, he wants to get Uro out the way, but because of her space and sky manipulation, she's able to redirect his own attack and send it right back at him, which is, I think, pretty cool. Alright, so here's the thing about Yuta. So, because he's constantly using reverse curse technique during this fight, because of, the injuries he got from Kurorushi and the injuries he got from Ryu, he is losing a lot of curse energy by doing this because reverse curse technique takes double the amount of curse energy. You're multiplying curse energy with itself. And so because of all of that, in this scene, he is now running pretty low. And so Ryu was thinking that, oh, okay, this guy's losing his curse energy. Clearly, my big fight that I've been waiting for all these years, it's not this guy. If he's already bottoming out, if he's already losing this much curse energy, how could it be him, right? It makes sense why he would think that. However, the reason why Ryu is wrong is that Yuta is possibly the only sorcerer who can expand his own curse energy levels to an insane degree by using his curse technique. The way his technique works is that by putting on the ring and by connecting himself to Rika, she is basically like an external storage for him. So she has weapons inside it, it has extra curse energy inside it, it has curse techniques as well. So for 5 minutes, he can be connected to her. And for those 5 minutes, he has access to all of the curse techniques that he's copied over the months. And he also has, like I said, access to extra curse energy and weapons as well. Okay, so Rika supplies him with this gauntlet on his right arm, which, you know what it reminds me of? Bucky from Captain America. The Wakandan vibranium arm that he got. Looks like that. Okay, so like I said, when connected to Rika, Yuta has access to all of his copied techniques, and one of those techniques is curse speech. The way he copies techniques is basically by Rika has to basically eat someone's body part, all right? And so when Rika eats someone's body part, doing that is what gives her access to the curse technique of that person. And, obviously it gives Yuta access as well. You might remember that back in the JJK movie, Yuta used this technique once before with the curse speech megaphone, but this is a bit different. This is him actually having the symbol on his actual mouth, which implies that he's copied it directly from Inumaki himself. Now, the question is, how did he do this? Well, back in Shibuya, Inumaki lost his arm, if you remember, and by having Rika eat that arm, she was able to absorb curse speech, and it allows Yuta to use it in this moment. After using curse speech, he freezes Uro in place and just punches her 1,000,000 times. After this, it's just carnage, right? Everyone is just blasting and fighting everyone at once. Okay, this is like a huge upscale for Uro right now, because I don't remember her doing this. I don't remember her doing this at all. Lifting the ground up and kind of making it ripple, that is nuts. Okay, so we're getting a bit of Uro's backstory here, even though it's just flashing up on screen for a split second. If you didn't pause to read it, I don't blame you. But what it's saying is that back in the day, when Uro was the captain of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, the people in that squad were forbidden from having their own names. Essentially, they were assassins who dedicated themselves to darkness and to, serving the Fujiwara clan. So there wasn't any need for them to have a name. However, eventually someone in the Fujiwara clan did give Uro a name, and he gave her the name so that he could execute her. In other words, someone in the Fujiwara clan killed a member of their own family, but they didn't want to take responsibility for the crime, so they said that Uro did it, and in order to, I guess, put her on trial, they gave her a name. For that reason, 1,000 years later, she's pissed off, and for some reason she thinks that Yuta is a member of the Fujiwara clan. Now, where would she get this information from? Honestly, I don't know. Obviously, she didn't do a DNA test right here and now, but I think what she's saying is that Yuta's general vibe is giving off the vibe of someone who is blessed, which he is. He's got incredible powers. Whether he is Fujiwara or not, she sees him as someone who is like what they used to be. Is that making sense? I hope that's making sense. Like the people who she used to interact with in the Fujiwara clan, Yuta has that same vibe. Anyway, the fight then continues, and we see Yuta using Drew's technique. So these little Rika Shikigami that we're seeing, that is Drew's curse technique. Yuta is creating he's using the Shikigami to create an orbit, and inside that orbit, he can slash whoever's inside. So he's essentially created a domain right here, and that's what he's using to slash Uro. The implication of this is that Rika at some point has eaten Drew's body, must have happened off screen, and through that, he's able to use this power. Okay, cool. So this is the most famous scene of this entire fight. You've probably, even if you're an anime only, you've probably seen this image before of them doing the three-way domain clash. Behind Ryu, you can see the three domains overlapping on each other. And this is the first and the only time we're going to see this. But the interesting thing about it is that in the past, we've seen two domains overlapping, right? When Jogo and Gojo were fighting in season 1, those were two domains that overlapped. Jogo opened his first, and then over that, Gojo opened his. But three domains overlapping, each domain having different conditions and, potentially being different sizes from each other and having different levels of refinement. I would have loved to see how this would have turned out if they had been left alone. But the truth is we don't know how it would have turned out. Because as they're doing the three-way domain, Kurourushi just bursts in. Now, the thing about Kurourushi is that the original Kurourushi was killed by Yuta, but like we mentioned before, it had that special ability to self-reproduce. And so this Kurourushi that we're seeing here, this is the offspring of the first Kurourushi. And the reason it's so powerful is that when the original Kurourushi was killed in this moment, the fear that people have of cockroaches was all transferred to the child. So it's kind of like an endless cycle, really. Kurourushis can keep reproducing, and then when they die, the curse energy will be transferred to the child, and it can just keep going on and on and on. That is how this child is here, and as we can see, it puts its hand into the barrier, and by doing that, it contributes to the barrier just breaking. Okay, so in this scene, Yuta really sets Uro up badly. After you open a domain, your curse technique doesn't work, usually. For most people, after opening a domain, their curse technique is just, malfunctions a little bit. So yeah, Yuta he just set her up. He kicked her right into the path of Kurourushi when he knew that she couldn't properly use her curse technique. So she gets screwed and she loses her arm, and Rika eats the arm straight away, giving Yuta access to Uro's curse technique. As we can see, Ryu then blasts her away, so she's been doubly screwed over, and Yuta then deals with the Kurourushi. So at this point, the last two fighters are Ryu and Yuta. That is it. Now, like I said before, Ryu's main goal is to have a fulfilling dessert, to complete his life. In this scene, Ryu is about to just give it his all and give a full blast of his curse energy, while Yuta is about to do the same because, look at him. He said, just this one time I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all out and we'll see what happens. Did you hear that background music? Oh, okay. This episode is 10 out of 10. I probably can't put this in the video, but they're playing ISO as the two blasts are clashing with each other. This is good choice, good choice. I hope no one is watching my video or any video instead of watching the episode. You have to just watch the episode, please. Okay, I'm going to pause it for a second. So Ryu and Yuta were having their curse energy clash, just going all out. Ryu won that clash. As we know, his output is more than anyone else, so he won the clash and sent Yuta flying backwards. But that wasn't enough to, it wasn't enough to kill Yuta or to defeat Yuta. So what Yuta did is he distracted Ryu by getting Rika to send a second blast of curse energy. Now, while Rika was doing that, Yuta then ran up by the side and was trying to sneak up on him. But Ryu, Ryu's a good fighter and he's pretty smart as well. So he noticed what Yuta was doing and prepares, he turns his head to the side and prepares to blast Yuta again. In the process of doing this, Ryu also, he stops Rika's curse energy blast with his bare hand. That is insane. You know, I don't want anyone to gloss over that. This is a special grade. Ryu is special grade. I don't care what anyone says. This is a special grade sorcerer. So as Yuta is then running up on him, Ryu blasts him with another blast of curse energy. Only this time, because Yuta has Uro's curse technique now, he's able to deflect the blast upwards because he can manipulate the sky. And yeah, Yuta punches Ryu with Thin Icebreaker, which is Uro's technique. Rika also punches him in the head. So this is a lot of damage he's taking, but he still keeps going. Ryu is incredibly durable. He's still going at it. Just bare knuckle fighting each other, beating the crap out of each other. Because by this point, it's important to note, Yuta's curse energy, it's been 5 minutes, so his connection to Rika is done, and the curse techniques that he had access to, he now can't access them. So at this point, it is just an all-out bare-knuckle fight between them. Or at least it was a bare-knuckle fight, until the curse energy that Yuta has sent into the sky then comes back down, and it smashes into Ryu. This was a great tactic from Yuta, and as we can see, Ryu is properly burnt up by his own curse energy. And yeah, that's the end of the fight. It was great tactics from Yuta, honestly. So yeah, that was the end of the fight. And luckily for Uro and Ryu, by this point, by the time the fight had ended, Yuji's fight with Higuruma had also ended. And so by this point in the timeline, Higuruma had added the rule that allows people to transfer points. And because of that, it meant that Yuta didn't have to kill, Ryu, and he didn't have to kill Uro. If Higuruma hadn't added that rule, I think he would have killed them both because, you know, what choice would he have? But thanks to Yuji and what he did, he was able to get all these points without having to kill them. As the episode ends, we then get a montage of various things that are happening in the Jujutsu world at the same time. So let's go through them one by one. So we see Charles Bernard, who's a French sorcerer, and we see him in a Ferris wheel with Hikari, right? So that's going to be very relevant in the next season. We also see Kashimo just killing yet another person because that's what he does. The location Kashimo is in, you know, manga readers will know, you'll recognize where he is and what's about to happen next, but we'll get into that next season. We then see Maki just tearing through a cursed spirit as she does. Miwa, okay, cool. Yeah, there's Miwa. Oh, this is cool. So we see Tengen, Yuki, and Chozo just around the dinner table, but it seems like no one's talking right now. We also get this visual of Angel carrying Megumi. In the last episode, we saw Megumi he was exhausted, and Angel came to his rescue. And yeah, now we see that she's taking him somewhere, but at this stage, we don't know where exactly that is. Now, this is pretty interesting. So we see Kenjaku in the middle of the ocean with the prison realm. Now, I don't know if this isn't spoilers to say this, but he is going to the bottom of the ocean to bury the prison realm as deep as he can. He wants to put the prison realm in a place where even if Gojo was to escape, he would instantly die. Or at least that's the hope. He's hoping that if he puts it in the bottom of the ocean, Gojo, if he was to escape, he would just drown, or the pressure would kill him, or something like that. I don't know. I think we can all agree. This is probably a smart thing for Kenjaku to do. Rather than having the prison realm on him at all times, it's good to put it somewhere where even if Gojo was to escape, he'd be in a bit of trouble. And yeah, and we see Yuji and Takaba, and then that's the end of it. I guess Yuji and Takaba are running after Megumi, if I had to guess, because in the last episode, Yuji and Takaba hadn't met, I'm pretty sure. So the only reason they could be running right now is because they see Angel carrying Megumi's body, and they're chasing after her. So yeah, that was the end of the season, really. I've heard that this is the end of season 3 and that the next season is going to be season 4. That's the rumor that I saw online. So yeah, that is the end of season 3, apparently. And yeah, it was a great season, honestly. It definitely enhanced and definitely extended certain things in this last episode. So yeah, I really enjoyed that last episode. And yeah, sorry that this video is different to usual. I thought it would be fun to just do a reaction because I was suspecting that they would improve certain things. So it was good to see it live and give a reaction to that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below about what you think about the episode and also the entire season. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back next year to do season 4. In the meantime, I'll be talking about Invincible and also I'll still be doing Jujutsu Kaisen videos. There are still certain things to talk about. So yeah, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next few videos. And until the next one, peace out.